Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means the study or science, Sattology means the science of truth or study of truth. And mythology, on the other hand, means science of fake lie imagination or science of myth or study of myth. Mythology we have to debunk, and that's what we call it, debunking mythology. Because mythology destroys your identity. Like whichever you believe in, go back to your native root cultures. If you are a Hindu, become a true Hindu. If you're a Christian, go to pre-Christian history. And that's how we start looking at our native history and respecting that. I have a very, very special guest, a researcher, Muni, Swami, whatever you call it, but in short means a very intelligent scholar. And most of the times he has done amazing original research. And that is the one fact I love about him, is that sometimes when we say in the West, out of the box. Out of the box means original thinking, and also challenging the status quo. So those words can be applied because the status quo means we are stagnant as a human race, and we have to use our God-given intelligence to expand the human frontiers on the basis of truth. Satyamev Jayate. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Nilesh Nilkant Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji. And what you just said, revolution or thinking out of the box. And one of the things that original researchers do is that they rouse the lazy researchers from their slumber. So they bring up a problem that is not solved by anyone else, but that is very crucial to whatever the subject for which people are trying to grow their knowledge. It could be physics, it could be chemistry, it could be biology, astronomy, history, anything. So they pick up a problem, they bring it to people's attention that is simply been not solved. And therefore, other people want to what you call the traditional people, academics, let's say, you can say, or somebody who is just stuck into a comfortable, cushy consensus. Everyone is agreeing, although it can be totally wrong. So subject like a global warming or whatever it is. It doesn't matter which side of the which position you take, but if it is not driven by evidence but simply by consensus, then it is actually a very dogmatic thing. And so a new researcher, or when somebody brings up a certain problem not solved by others, that actually shakes things up. It rattles people, it rattles researchers. And that is not a subject today, Aditya ji, but that is something is happening. I got the news this morning, and it's we will not go into the details of that, but it's a very good news. I mean, just that it tells you that people are shaken. They are rattling, they are awake, they are becoming awake. And so that's all good thing. It's a manthan.
The two words come to my mind is scholarly consensus versus scholarly apartheid.
Yeah.
The scholarly consensus is where people like us who are focused on the native cultures of the world, we are kept out of the academic circles deliberately. And the scholarly apartheid. And the people who do it are the guys who claim to be scholarly consensus. Like if you do not have a PhD, you're not supposed to speak. You can't get grants in the university, in the US, if you don't have a PhD.
Yes.
And which is I think it's a scholarly apartheid actually. Because then the people who claim to be scholars and who know how to regurgitate the already regurgitated stuff, which is punash charvita charunanam. Like already chewed, they are already taking out the chewing the chewed. They are considered scholars, which is a big problem for people like us or anyone else who wants to get into that field. What do you have to say on that?
Right. Well, to be fair, that these kind of systems are there in place. For example, you mentioned one has to have, say, a minimum of a PhD in order to get into academia, or in order to able to get grants. Eligible for a grants. You can see that the original intent wasn't wrong, because that means it's like, see, when you hear somebody has got a bachelor's degree, or somebody is an engineer, somebody is a doctor, I mean, some degree I'm talking, somebody has got master's, somebody has got PhD, somebody has got a business degree or a MBA. What that helps us to do, although not always true, many times actually not true, but we still know that the person, and we hope, that has achieved a minimum level of qualification. Okay, he or she definitely, or we hope that definitely knows something. Now, actually, when you start interacting, you may find a different story. So, original intent is not wrong, Adityaji. The problem is, by the way, the American system, in spite of all the chaos that is happening in academia, is, you can say, relatively the open system in comparison to many systems, including the Indian academic system, where things go more by the law that possibly was written 100, 200, 300 years ago. And then it really chokes the system from, like, it keeps away, like you used the word, what was that? The scholarly apartheid, you said, or I forgot.
Scholarly consensus, yes.
Scholarly consensus is one, and apartheid. Well, they both are in a way used in a very negative fashion, unfortunately. Scholarly consensus is a slightly different issue. In fact, Michael Crichton writes it very well. He says, if something is a academic consensus or a scholarly consensus, take it without any hesitation, that means it is not scientific. Because when you when you talk of a scientific things, you do not say, for example, that sun is at the center of a solar system and all the planets are rotating around the sun, and this is a scholarly consensus. You don't say that. Now, initially when it was proposed, okay, that may be the case, because why was that? Because it was a scholarly consensus was thinking other way, and now somebody roused them from their slumber. Okay, so that's a scholarly consensus problem. Simple thing to remember: if it's a scholarly consensus, it's not scientific, and if something is scientific, it doesn't need a consensus. So then people sometimes wonder, so okay, so if it's not the consensus, how a new theory, a new revolutionary theory, new revolutionary claim, how does it get accepted? Well, it get accepted for two reasons, and you'll like that. Max Planck, one of the Nobel laureate, he said that. He said how does a new theory finally gets accepted? He said, not because people are intelligent enough to look at the evidence and say, oh my God, I was wrong. Even if they know, their ego comes in between. Ahankara vimudhatma, that ego comes in between. They will not be willing to give up what they have somehow hang on to. So do you know what happens? Max Planck says, he says, the new theory comes to life, okay, or gets accepted, he said, one funeral at a time. When the old folks who are stuck in their old times and consensus and all, they slowly die, and the new generation is aware of these new theories, new claims, and new evidence, and they grow up in the presence of that new evidence. Very sad, but unfortunately, that's the reality. The second way a new theory gets accepted is because a few people, not many, because there are not many intelligent people, generally there is a distribution, but they take to the evidence and they have the courage to say that I was wrong. And this may not be perfect, but this is a better theory or a better claim. So that's how it happens. And apartheid is like, maybe, you use the word. So you may want to talk about, what do you see? I mean, you are closer. I mean, you are teaching and with the students on different certificates, and you also interact with students all the time. So what do you think?
Now, apartheid is the kind of political segregation where one class of people were considered lower. And when I say scholarly apartheid, is any study from outside the Western institutions or institutions controlled by the Western institutions is considered a strict no-no, because it doesn't match with the colonial ideology. Because when you study in a Western school or college, you have to accept their terms and conditions. And you have to speak. You're judged on how well you learn it.
Okay. So, well, I will tell you, Aditya, something very similar, but this time not in the Western academia. It is happening in India. with me, again, we will not talk about it. It's a very humorous subject, and we will leave it at that. But that is exactly happening. So what you said, again, I'm forgetting, scholarly apartheid. So I'm that, that person who is facing it. Frankly, I'm very happy about it. Okay, and that's something we don't need to discuss. But I mean, that will be a digression from the typical scientific subjects that we discuss. And that's why I don't want to discuss it. But it's very interesting what's
Yeah, it's a
happening.
very oxymoronic term, scholarly as well as apartheid. A scholar cannot be an apartheidistic, to a large extent, because a scholar means keeping an open mind, and
Yeah, yeah,
they have to accept all viewpoints. But this particular phenomena you mentioned in India also, because a lot of Western cronies are in India also.
hmm,
So, like for example, the Osiris theory, heroes theory, all this
hmm,
theory where where the Jesus myth is being spoken
hmm.
about.
Yeah,
Now, if I speak in front of a scholarly consensus, guys, they'll kick us out, because gay, Orisis, heroes, all
yeah,
these are completely destroyed the entire source of Abrahamic literature.
yeah,
If two people never existed and third person claims to have seen those two people, that means third person is the biggest fake,
yes,
because the two people did not exist in the front place, and third person says in his revelations, I saw that. That's
hmm,
exactly the situation of Western academics, and academics inspired by such mindsets.
yeah,
We all know the Council of Nicaea, how they came up with the Bible
yeah.
in 525 Common Era. Yeah, go ahead. You're speaking something.
Yeah, no, I wanted to say a few things, but I forgot some of the things, which is okay. But just on the Council of Nicaea, you said, and I would say almost something similar is the mentality of some of the Indic researchers. They would rather do the jugaad. Council of Nicaea. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can help. So the Council of Nicaea is like a jugaad. The people come to agree to something, right? This is exactly what they would do. They would rather come together and says, give this here, take this here. Can we tweak it? And can we agree to this particular timeline? Say my subject of historical timelines, and that is like exactly opposite of what our darshan shastra teaches, exactly opposite of vaisheshika, exactly opposite of nyaya, exactly opposite of sankhya. Okay, exactly opposite of the logic of scientific method, logic of scientific discovery. But that's why I'm just smiling, because it's very humorous, what is happening. There are a lot of good things happening, but one of the good thing is, usually many of these people who fight with me, I mean, fighting for last 10 plus years, many times they will come under a mask, like some proxy handle. Okay, which means you even don't know who that person is. I mean, the person is so fearful, he or she will not reveal their identity. Something good is finally happening, is that these people are revealing their identity. I mean, when they are when they are like blaspheming is not the right word. They are like in a very foolish fashion criticizing my work, saying, for example, one individual today wrote about the 12,209, my Ramayana work. I forgot now, but said something like, oh, I read that book. I mean, he wrote, and everything he said, assumptions, testing, inferences, it's all bogus. Okay, and I cannot tell you how joyful that moment was. And he said, I think he gave a new term, by the way, which is nice. I'm always looking for the terms, like, there's a oak Mahabharat now. Okay, because people fail to read Mahabharat. When I and you will have similar experience with the Lanka. when people fail to read Mahabharat or Valmiki Ramayana, and when you try to tell them what Vyasa has written in the Mahabharat or Valmiki ji has written in the Ramayana, they think we are telling something else that doesn't exist, because they never bother to read it, or they don't have the scientific acumen or logical reasoning. So this person gave something like, say, assumptions, all that is wrong. I mean, what I have done is useless or something. And then I think he said something, oh yeah, and then so he called it ecological dating. That's a new word, I have to get used to it. Ecological dating. Um, and this can be the method of ecological dating. I love it, actually. Can be compared with the flat earth theorist. Okay? So I said, now do you know what is happening? My Indian publisher called me, pinged me rather, on a WhatsApp. And he said, there is a suddenly rush, and jokingly, of course, he said, there is a sudden rush of the flat earth theorist to buy my Ramayana book. No, that was a joke, but many people are going to now actually buying the 12,209 book in India to see, is it basically the assumptions are flawed? Yeah, the word used was all the assumptions, all the inferences, all the testing is flawed. And the ocological dating method can only be compared with the flat earth theorist. So through you, I would like to reach all the flat earth enthusiasts around the world and encourage them to go check the historic Rama on Amazon, or 12,209 BC in India from Subbu Publications, and just start reading. And then they have to do one more thing. They have to give what they think of that book once they read it. It will be fun.
The only thing I want to add here is they should not fall off the flat earth, because
yeah. And this Sunday, I'm going to talk about another subject. I mean, something you and me have discussed, the weekday sequence, but some interesting stuff I will share. And we will do that here too again. And I'm going to talk about how Greeks were thinking of a flat earth for a very long time. Very long time. Whereas very long time meaning only 2,500 years ago, they were thinking of flat earth. Therefore, they were thinking for a long time, I'm saying. Whereas the Indians going back to thousands of years, 10,000, 20, 30, 40,000 years, they are perfectly aware of a spherical earth. And we have the references. By the way, today what we are going to discuss, and you can get into whatever else you want to discuss, but today what we are going to discuss is also going to rattle people, okay, going to rouse people out of their slumber. And that is the whole objective of doing this. Otherwise, where is the fun? There is no point. There is a lot of truth out there. I mean, I can count the number of light bulbs I see behind your back there, and whatnot. And yeah, that's the truth. But who cares such kind of truth? We are interested in the exciting truth. We are interested in the intelligent kind of truth. And that's what we are going to discuss today.
No, you are going to reveal some secrets about the planets, the famous seven.
The famous seven.
The famous seven, and also that Vyasdev actually saw something which others have recorded much later on.
Yes. So do you know how later, as far as the Western world is concerned, and frankly to Indians also, and I'll tell you why Indians might have lost the knowledge that Vyasa had more than 7,500 years ago. Okay. But in the modern astronomy sense, these things were discovered, or the correct word is rediscovered, in the last 200 plus years. That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah. And that's why I said people are going to first fall off of their chairs. Hopefully they don't have a flat chairs like flat earth, so fall off of their chairs. And now, there will be a discussion as to how you and me are lunatics, well, there is going to be a the moon there in the discussion too. So yeah. So seven planets from the Mahabharata text.
Yeah, you can start now.
Okay, I'll start sharing it. Let's see. I think I have given the title too. Go ahead.
Yeah, while you're sharing the thing, one thing I just want to add, and if you remember what you forgot, then do speak in the middle.
The previous points, right?
Yeah.
No, you are making some interesting points, and for everything, I had something to add, and then you made another interesting point, and then I forgot what I wanted to say about the previous ones. Okay.
Benefit of Kali Yuga memory, and that's why the Shastras are written.
Yes. And people think the Kali Yuga is just began for 5,000 years. No, that's wrong. Actually, Kali Yuga began almost same time as the Mahabharata, therefore 7,500 years ago. Now, thanks to the work of Jivan Rao. By the way, I did pin him, and I said you have to find a time and talk to Aditya ji. His work, thanks to his wonderful work, he extracted 100 plus references from Mahabharata, from various Puranas, some 30, 40, 50 references from other Puranas, astronomy texts, and now we can say with the confidence to the world, as far as the Mahabharata and Purana tradition is concerned, the Kali Yuga began on the last day and 18th day of the Mahabharat War, and that is on the 2nd November 5561 BCE. All the evidence of Mahabharata Puranas take you there. But that's not the subject today, although Mahabharata is the subject. Very interesting. Last time, Adityaji, if you remember, we talked about Vakri versus retrograde
That's right.
and those descriptions from the Mahabharata planetary evidence. Today, what we are going to discuss is also planetary evidence, but we are going to limit ourselves to three instances from the Mahabharata text. And what it is about, all three instances, there is a mention of Sapta Grahas, 7 planets. Now, planets is a bit of a generic translation, and you know that, of course. The Graha is something that catches, that grasps, which also means it moves. Now, the planet, which is a Greek word, also came with a somewhat similar meaning, because graha in the sense of what, that something that grasps, but also in the sense of something that wanders. Whereas in anybody's lifetime, you will feel that all the stars are in the same position, not much difference. I mean, over with the season, what you can see is different. What time they come up will change because of the season, but otherwise their position relative to each other is practically same for one person's lifetime. Okay, but that is not the case when it comes to planets. They move much faster. So there are three references of 7 planets doing something, and the question is, Mahabharata has got 300 plus astronomy observations. Out of that, these 3, so what is that? 1% of these observations, can we corroborate them for the Mahabharata timings? Okay, so it goes both ways. We can use them to find the Mahabharata timing, or if we know the Mahabharata timing, now it's our responsibility. If we're claiming a certain date, like I am saying 5561 BCE, to show that those 7 planets can actually be corroborated the way they are described in the Mahabharata text. Another important thing, Adityaji, about this scholarly apartheid, scholarly consensus versus the original thinking and original research. And when some other researchers come on your show, and this is my request to everyone, I'm going to tell everyone, they should ask, like, how did their research begin? Like, what was that unsolved, toughest problem that they were trying to solve, which was not solved by anybody else? Because, see, somebody has already given some solution, most cases. Now, there are cases when nothing exists. But for example, before I came on the scene and started researching Mahabharata or Ramayana or Rigveda for their antiquity, it is not that I was the first person to do it. In case of Mahabharata, there are hundreds of other researchers before me who had made attempt and actually has proposed a specific date. Same thing for Ramayana, same thing for Rigveda. So what is the purpose? I mean, why should I even do it? I mean, yeah, other people have done it. What is different that I'm doing? And the answer to that question in the scientific field. Now, if it's like a jugaad and just discuss whatever nonsense you want to discuss, it's a different story. But in the science speak, in a darshana speak, in a nyaya darshana speak, in a vaisheshika darshana speak, Sankhya speak, because Sankhya is to know about the world ontologically and epistemologically, to ask the question, what is that toughest unsolved problem that you tried to solve, which led you to your original discoveries? And that's the question. Today we are taking, just like we have discussed Arundhati Vasishta, Bhishma Nirvana, and many others. Or last time we did Vakri versus retrograde. That was also a toughest problem that was not solved by anybody. Okay. And that gets solved for 5561 BCE. Today we are going to look at another problem that gets solved again only for 5561 BCE. But we'll just initially look at how it gets solved for 5561 BCE. And if somebody thinks, oh, hold on, I have also solved it, then it's an open challenge. Anyone can come and show how that is so. So the toughest problem is 7 planets attacking the sun or the moon. Now, I'll tell you why this is the toughest problem in a minute. But what happens is, if you see a tough problem, you propose a solution. Now, this is also very important. The solution you are going to propose has to be consistent. So my theory for explaining all the 300 plus astronomy observations of Mahabharata text, it has to be one. I cannot have a hodgepodge of different theories. Okay. So that theory is all astronomy descriptions of the Mahabharata text or visual observations of Mahabharata times. As soon as you propose a theory, a statement of a theory, which is universal and generic, some beautiful things happen. Actually, three beautiful things must happen. First thing, it tells you exactly where to look for the evidence, what constitutes the evidence for the theory, and what is not evidence for that theory, what is in scope, what is out scope. That's the first thing. The next thing you see is, what background knowledge is required. Very simple. You're trying to date the Mahabharata using astronomy. Two things you need. You need all the knowledge of astronomy. You need all the knowledge of a Mahabharata text. That is your background knowledge. Now, you also, third thing you want to find out is how you're going to test it, how you're going to test it objectively, like Indriya Pramanya. So there are 7 planets descriptions. So you're going to read that description, and now you're going to try to recreate. How do you recreate? You can do this by mathematical calculation. You can do this by astronomy simulation softwares, astronomy calculations, many possibilities. When you succeed in this, it's going to lead to two outcomes. One outcome is it will go back and say, if you succeed, it says, yes, actually, I could show the 7 planets as described in the Mahabharata text here, again, Mahabharata text here, again, Mahabharata text here, all of them. If you fail to describe one of them, that's perfectly fine, but you note it down. You say, hey, you know what? There are 3 possibilities, 3 instances. Out of that, I could show in the 2 places, but I could not show in the 3rd place. And in a very objective manner, like caring for the truth, having that absolute standards, the pure believing in the moral standards, absolute morality. You will say, you consider it's your duty to tell people when something does not corroborate for your date. Okay, so that's one thing that happens. And the second thing is, it always, if you start with the toughest unsolved problem, then you are almost assured. I am just saying the word almost because I don't want to say 100%. Even Mahabharata always use the word kvachit, rarely, hardly. It doesn't say 100% in that sense. But I'm saying almost close to 100%. You can be assured that if you start with the toughest unsolved problem, you are also going to get something revolutionary, something spectacular, something fascinating as one of your outcome, one of your inference. And the inference I'm going to give you, and this may rouse some people from their afternoon nap, right? Or if it's a morning there. The inference is that we have a reason to say that Vyasadeva, more than 7,500 years ago, at the time of Mahabharat War, actually was very much aware of the 3 planets. Now we know them very well: Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. All 3 of them are not, they cannot be seen with a naked eye. Okay, so very hard to notice. Even the Uranus, sometime, it's a magnitude 6. So sometimes people will say it can be seen with the naked eyes or with a clear skies and some right conditions. But guess what? If you don't know even where to look for, you will still not able to know. It's not very visible thing unless you know what you are looking for. So practically they are not visible through the naked eye, but Vyasa knew about them. Let's go and explore this. Okay, so let's now do the basics, the planets. Okay, so these are what you see in the picture. And I don't know if you can see the 9th one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 planets of our solar system. Okay, now half-baked knowledge, Aditya, you will find sometime we'll jump in. Now, fortunately, just you and me are discussing it. And for fun, sometimes we ask ourselves a question, even if we don't have questions. But people will say, but the Pluto, I heard like it's not a planet, and that means like it's a half-baked knowledge of astronomy. This kind of a very useless argumentation just goes on. Like they first did not know Pluto. They found the Pluto. Now it was a planet. After some time, they said now it's for some reason it should not be considered a planet. I don't know if you know that, but now they are again reconsidering if Pluto should be considered a planet. That's just can go on. The bottom line is Pluto exists. It orbits around the sun. We know it. So these are 9 planets. Okay. Now, important to remember. So if there are 9 planets, finding 7 planets out of them is not that difficult. Well, here is the problem. Just say that we are watching this thing from the Earth. So we cannot count Earth because from the Earth, we are seeing these planets in the sky. Okay. So Earth is gone. So we are down to 8. Now, if you limit yourself to naked eye visibility in the sky, not that I'm saying you have to, Then Uranus is gone, Neptune is gone, and Pluto is gone. Okay, so those planets are gone. Earth is gone because we are watching from the Earth. So now we are left with 5 visible planets that everybody knows. Okay, 5 visible planets. Now, when we talk of a graha, slightly things change, because in the Indian system, when we talk of a graha, we call navagraha. Okay, so we have the 5 visible planets that I showed on the previous page without the X mark. Plus, we add the sun and the moon, and then we add 2 more. Okay, and that's how we get to 9. So we are watching from the Earth. Look at the sun's path around the Earth, the ecliptic. Okay, so the sun is 1 more graha that gets added. The moon is another graha that gets added in the Indian system, right? So therefore, we call it Navagraha. And where the moon's orbit cuts the ecliptic, which is the sun's orbit, as seen from the Earth, we get those 2 nodes, okay, mathematical node points, and they are called Rahu. In fact, most people will say, come on, what do you mean? Aren't they called Rahu and Ketu? Of course they are. But Rahu and Ketu, we call them in our times, and we are possibly calling that way for last 2000, 3000 years. Okay. However, I must clearly mention that the Mahabharata, that's going back 7,500 years ago, did not refer to Ketu as the node of the moon. It refers to the node of the moon with the sun's orbit, of course, only as a Rahu. It doesn't matter which one. Okay, so the Ketu is it could have existed in parallel, but at least Mahabharata does not use that language. Mahabharata only uses Rahu. What to speak of Mahabharata 7,500 years ago? If you go back even 14,000 years back to Ramayana times, Ramayana also makes use of only the Rahu as referring to the node of the moon and sun's orbit. Ditto for Rigveda. Okay, so you do not see Ketu into Rigveda, Ramayana, or Mahabharata. But our times we can say that Rahu and Ketu. Okay, so just because they knew that there were 2 nodal points. Okay, even in the Ramayana times, Mahabharata times. Okay, so if we take these, so I am adding the 5 visible planets. Now, for a minute, I have removed Uranus, Neptune, Pluto because they are not visible to the naked eye. I added Rahu and Ketu. I also added sun and moon. These are the Navagrahas of an Indian system. Now, out of that, the 2 number 6 and 7, the Rahu and Ketu, I put them in a red color for a reason, because they are not visible in the sense of you can see their point in the sky as to know, okay, well, Rahu these days is here, but there is nothing to see because it's just a mathematical points of their orbits where their orbits cross each other. Those are the points where the eclipses in principle can happen, right? Around those points, not exactly those points. Not necessarily they have to be exact points. And then I have underlined sun and a moon, and here is the reason. Remember, there are 3 astronomy saptagraha, 7 planets doing something type of observations in the Mahabharata text. Out of that, 2 observations are in the context of the sun. And why is this important? Because it is saying that from the, let's take first observation. It says 7 graha, saptagraha, were 7 planets were seen around the sun, which means the sun is not part of that 7. Okay, in that case, what are we left with? We are left right now with 8 graha, and I'm going to use the word planets and graha interchangeably. Keep that in mind. In the Indian system, Rahu, Ketu, also sun and moon are considered graha or planets. Okay, so the 7 are doing something with respect to sun. They are near the sun, so sun is not part of it. Okay, so what are my choices? I'm left with 8 planets, and out of those 8 planets, I have to show that the 7 planets around the sun could be seen from the Earth at the time of the Mahabharat War for the specific day that was mentioned. And by the way, Adityaji, I might have forgot to mention that for these 3 observations of 7 planets doing something with the sun or a moon, actual specific day related to the Mahabharat War is also available, and we're going to look at that. But before we do that, let's also look at these 2. Now, should we consider Rahu and Ketu? Now, there can be two camps, uh, not the apartheid versus consensus, but they might be actually on the one side. But the camps could be that Rahu, if the description says they were seen, they were seen near the sun, or they were seen attacking the moon, or they were seen going away from the sun, then Rahu and Ketu will not be seen. So maybe, therefore, they should not be considered. Okay, now if somebody insists on considering, I'm going to tell you even what is the problem with that. Now something else. Now let's look at the last moon observation that I'm going to describe in detail. When the moon observation and Saptagraha, 7-planet observation comes, this is the fashion it comes. It says on the 14th day of the war, the 7 Kaurava brothers were attacking Bhima. Okay, and now Vyasadeva beautifully does a comparison of that with the 7 planets in the sky attacking the moon on the 14th day. But when is it happening? It's happening in the 14th day evening. Okay, so the moon is there in the sky, and more than likely the sun is not in the sky. Okay, and if it is there, that's fine. We will still see why there is a problem with this current system. Okay, but suppose sun is gone, so now moon is left. And now what do we have got? For example, if you include Rahu and Ketu, then we have got 7 planets. The problem is, unless it so magically happens that the Rahu and Ketu are exactly at the horizon, because they are 180-degree opposite. Unless they are exactly at the horizon, we will never able to say that both of them were in the sky. As soon as they're not at the horizon, one of the two, the other is going to be below the horizon. So for moon, it just does not work. Same thing actually for a sun. So how do we solve this problem? Okay, so that's what I mean by the toughest unsolved problem. Out of 3 instances, I'm going to take you to instance number 1. This day was when both armies, the Kuru, the Duryodhana's army, as well as the Pandavas, which is Yudhishthira's army, they both arrived at Kurukshetra. Mahabharat text tells us that both of those armies left from their respective locations on a Pushya Nakshatra. So about 2 days before. So Pandava army is kind of coming from different places, but leaving from Upaplavya. Okay. And the Kaurava army is coming from Hastinapura towards Kurukshetra. Okay. And so they left on Pushya Nakshatra. They arrived at Magha Nakshatra. And that day was 6th October 5561 BCE. So let's verify those things. Now, before I do that, I want to place the positions of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And what I'm going to show you is that unless you make an assumption that Vyasa knew Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, you will not able to explain why Vyasa would say that 7 planets were near sun, 7 planets were going away from the sun, or 7 planets were attacking the moon in the evening after sunset on the 14th day of the Mahabharat War. Okay. And again, the before sunset, after sunset is not that important. My point is that even makes it more pronounced situation. But otherwise, you still need for all 3 observations, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Vyasa knowing about them. Let's see how. So just to verify, this is the day 6th October 5561 BCE. Magha Vishaga Somas, that is the reference from Mahabharat I'm quoting. So Nakshatra was Magha. Okay, so I'm showing that is the moon there. Okay, and Nakshatra was Magha. This is the Vadya Paksha, the dark half. Okay, and so therefore the moon is not in the sky during the day. Okay, that's very important to remember. Okay, that's very important. And now this is where the description comes. It says the 7 planets could be seen. Now, when I'm saying seen, they were there. Okay, and I'm going to tell you the problem of that too. So they could be seen after the sunset. Okay, if they are in the sky and they are east of the sun, like what I'm going to show you here. Okay, these here, I'm going to show you in a minute. They could be seen after sunset. Now, how are we going to see Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto? Obviously, we have to have some telescopic ability. Now, is that a problem for Mahabharata? No, it's not a problem. Now, have we found like telescopes? No, we haven't found any telescopes in archaeological records. But what is interesting is Vyasa talks of a sukshma drushti, like a microscopic vision. So anyone who knows microscope knows telescope, macroscopic vision. Also, what to speak of just Mahabharata, 7,500 years ago. Even the Ramayana going back 14,000 years ago, both of them talk of mirrors, adarsha. Okay. So once you have mirrors, then you are into telescopes, you are into microscopes. So we can assume that we don't have archaeological evidence. We don't need archaeological evidence. If archaeological evidence is found, that's like a doodh mein shakkar, like a milk, and now we have got a sugar, but it's not required. Milk by itself is a complete nutrition. So now let us see that what are those Sapta Mahagraha. Okay. So I'm going to show you from there. So east of sun. Okay. So sunset will be here, wherever sun position is, but east of sun, you could see Mercury, you could see Venus, you could see Jupiter, you could see Mars, you could see Uranus, you could see Neptune, you could see Pluto. Those are the 7 planets that were in the sky. Okay. That could be seen at any given time in the sky. And if you want to say literally seen with a microscope or otherwise, or a telescope or otherwise, then we can say after the sunset, but that could be done. Okay. And that actually corroborates the particular day when nakshatra was Magha and both armies came to Kurukshetra. This is one of our 3 references. I will also mention no other Mahabharata researcher, and therefore for no other Mahabharata date other than 5561 BCE can show this to be true for their claim. Let's go to the next one. The second reference comes on the 14th day of the Mahabharat War. Okay, this is how original research is, guys. Okay, now 14th day of the Mahabharat War. Now keep in mind, this is just a simulator. Okay, so the position of the moon, when you look at it, you have to take that as a plus minus 1. Okay, because moon is changing continuously, and within the 24 hours it goes through 12 degrees. So when this shot is taken, okay, so think of this moon as actually between Kritika and Mrugashirsha. Actually, we know on the 14th day is close to Mrugashirsha. So imagine almost close to a full moon. Okay, actually just 14th day night, and 15th is a full moon day. Okay, something interesting. Yes, it was a full moon. We know that from additional evidence of a Mahabharata text. But Mahabharata descriptions are also showing, actually, this is the night that the war continued through the whole night, because it was a full moon night. And when the moon became visible, the descriptions of moon are like that. Purna Samaprabha. Okay. The moon is shining with the full brightness. Okay. Or its brightness is such that Timira Varana Yutha Vidarana. It completely removed the darkness. Okay. Made it look like a day. Those are the descriptions which are very consistent. But back to our problem of 7 graha. On this day, Jayadratha was killed. That is this day. Previous day, Abhimanyu was killed. And now the war, after Jayadratha killing, the war still continues. And actually it was fought through the night with just a gap of few hours when the army rested right on the field. Both armies rested right on the battlefield. Okay. So just this is the evening of 14th before the war fighting would continue through the night. And 7 Kaurava brothers attacked Bhima. This is what they Pedayan Bhima Senam Kruddha Sapta Maharatha Praja Samvarne Rajan Somam Sapta Graha Iva. Okay, so these 7 warriors, Kaurava brothers, attacked Bhima, and Vyasadeva is beautifully doing the comparison of that with what's happening in the sky. That is my theory. Think of it. All astronomy descriptions of the Mahabharata text are actual, factual, visual descriptions of the sky of those times. Okay, so can we show 7 planets attacking the moon? Well, moon, this is in the evening, moon has just risen. Okay, just risen on the eastern horizon. And can we show this Sapta Graha? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In fact, they're not going to change much positions during those days. The tricky one is what? The tricky one can be Uranus. The tricky one can be Venus and Mercury, because they are close to the sun. And if they go on the other side of the sun, then that's a problem, because now we will not able to say that the 7 planets could be seen attacking the moon near sun or going away from the sun. So this is our second reference. Actually, we can show for 29th October 5561 BC, the 14th day of the war, yes, there were 7 planets after the sunset, could be seen attacking the sun on one side. This is sun here, and all these 7 planets on, towards, as if like coming towards this, towards the moon. Sorry, did I say sun? The moon here, just after sunset, the moon is rising, and all the 7 planets attacking towards the moon. Okay, let's quickly do the last one, and then we are done. The last reference to Saptagraha, Saptamahagraha, and doing something, in this case, now in the context of the sun, occurs on the 16th day of the war. This is when now Karna has taken the leadership of the Kaurava army, because the previous day Drona was killed. Okay, so 31st of October 5561 BC, 16th day of the war. This is a day again of a full moon. Okay, Margashirsha Shukla 15. Just by simple count, I'm saying. In reality, there can be a difference of plus minus 1. Okay, what is the reference? Now remember, this is a full moon by the way, Margashirsha Shukla 15, or if not full moon, close to a full moon, like a Chaturdashi or something. And what do you see? That's what you expect. Purna Shashi Prabhananam. In fact, the position of the moons, again, Adityaji, you will love this. Where is the position of the moon? The position of the moon is at the Ardra Nakshatra. And at the time of the Mahabharat War, 5561 BCE, what do you see? The Ardra is called as if it's a Vishakha, not Vishakha Nakshatra, but like Vishakha. Vishakha yor Madhyagata Shashiyatha. So the moon is like as if between the 2 Vishakhas. What is the Vishakha is referring to? The Vishakha it is referring to, and that will be a totally different subject. In fact, Rupa Bhattiji has discussed with you like Krittika, Vishakha, and then nomenclature. The starting of their nomenclature possibly going to as early as 28,500 BC. It can be earlier, but it cannot be later than 28,000 BCE, when Krittika, Nakshatra Krittika was named as a Krittika and Vishakha was named as a Vishakha, but we'll not go there. But the point, why Krittika? Like, Adityaji, if you know like a scissors, scissors, like they have a shape like this, V shape. And Vishakha also imagined to be like 2 branches of a tree. Okay, now just look at for a second, the Krittika is here. If you go exactly opposite to that, you're going to find Vishakha, that Vishakha Anuradha area. So when vernal equinox was at Krittika, or one of the equinox was at Krittika, the other equinox was at Vishakha. And yes, it was also true 2500 BCE, but Krittika and Vishakha name, we have evidence they existed before that. So that's why we are saying now we have to go through a complete cycle of precession to 28,000 BC. That's a different subject, but let me bring you back to here. So the Vishakha is referred here in the sense of the position of Ardra, because at the time of Mahabharat War, 6th millennium BC, the position of Ardra is at the vernal equinox, and therefore that V shape, like a Vishakha shape or a Krittika shape, like, Caesars. Why? Because the celestial equator and ecliptic, they cross at the point of equinoxes. Okay, that's why this is the green line here, you can see, and the blue line that is cutting there. Very beautiful full moon-like description. Now, this is a full moon. Now, are there additional descriptions of a full moon on this day? Yes, absolutely. Purna Chandra Arka Padamana, or Purna Chandra Nibhar Mahim, or Purna Chandra Bhavaktrani. You see all these descriptions. But back to our subject, the focus is on 7 planets doing something with either sun or moon. We already looked at 2 of the 3 references. Now the third reference. And what does it say? Nishcharanto Vyadrushanta Surya Sapta Mahagraha. What was seen is that the 7 planets were seen going away from the sun, or moving from the sun, or moving away from the sun. You can take in 10 different ways. Bottom line is we have to show 7 planets near the sun. Okay. And that something could be visible in principle at one time. Okay. At one time. And so that's, we go again, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Okay, so we can show the 7 planets for 6th October, about 10 days before the war began. Then on the 29th October, on the 14th day of the war in the evening, 7 planets attacking the moon after sunset. And on the 16th day of the war, 31st October, again 7 planets going away from the sun, moving from the sun. So we can corroborate all three for the year 5561 BC. To do this, we made an assumption here that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were known to the Vyasa. Now, if you take those away, I'm telling you, of course, 5561 will also not able to corroborate, but even even if you include Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, I'm telling you, based on my study of 130 plus different claims for the year of Mahabharat War, no other researcher will able to corroborate these three descriptions of 7 planets with respect to the sun, near sun, going away from the sun, or 7 planets attacking the sun on namely the 10 days before the war, on the 14th day of the war, and the 16th day of the war. Okay. Quickly, these are my books. If you are in India, this book now. People should, if they want to read, of course, they can read others. They should get in a hurry because, the flat earth theorist and enthusiast might be after this book in India and on Amazon too here for the rest of the world. And if you are outside India, you can challenge Amazon, by the way, because Amazon model is print on demand. So let's see how fast and how efficiently they can do it. It's a print on demand. So I think they never go out of print per se, but you can test it, how fast they can supply those. So that's the historic Rama, which is same as the 12,209. Quick summary. Very, very important. Pay attention now. Okay. This is how original research is done, guys. And it can be challenged. It should be challenged. Okay. But you do not just blindly challenge in a very illogical, very juvenile, very childish, stupid fashion by saying you are wrong. No, that's not how scientific research happens. That is not how Nyaya Darshana research happens. Nyaya Darshana says Vitanda, swa pratipaksha sthapana hino Vitanda. Somebody is making a certain type of theory and showing how that particular thing can be corroborated. If you have an alternate better theory, then you talk about it. If you don't have anything and you want to just say that theory, I'm not happy with that particular thing. No, that's called Vitanda. And the person is to be immediately removed from the conference, immediately removed from the debate. Okay. Unlike I was removed from one so-called discussion group. Okay. And that person should be declared as a defeated. That is how Nyaya Darshana works. And Aditya there is a need, a very urgent need, if people need to get out of the nonsense of scientific consensus, or the scholarly consensus rather. There is no concept called scientific consensus, my bad. Scholarly consensus or the scholarly apartheid that you talked about, then they need to embrace the logic of scientific method in a hurry, logic of scientific discovery and Nyaya Darshana. Okay. Quick summary. Mahabharata text describes the 3 instances of 7 planets. We described those, we discussed those. 7 planets were seen near the sun, with both armies arise at Kurukshetra and Nakshatra Magha. That's 6 October 5561 BC. Now that is for my claim. If somebody else is claiming something, the date will be different. But for that different date with a Nakshatra Magha, about 10 days before the Mahabharat War, they have to show 7 planets near the sun, which could be seen either, say, before sunrise or after sunset. Okay. 7 planets were attacking the moon in the evening on the 14th day of the war. That can be shown for 29th October 5561 BC. 7 planets were seen going away from the sun, Nishcharanto, Vyadrashanta, right? Away from the sun on the 16th day of the war, 31st of October 5561 BC. All 3 cases I showed how this can be shown for 5561 BC. Now, which is to say these descriptions can be corroborated only for the year 5561 BC. All I showed you today is that they can be corroborated for 5561 BC. I am asserting that they can be shown only for 5561 BC, which means I am challenging every other Mahabharata researcher to show, if they don't agree with it, to show how there are 7 planets 3 times for these 3 events of the Mahabharat War for whatever date, whatever days they claim. Okay. And lastly, therefore, we can infer that Vyasa was indeed aware of the presence of Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Immediately, the people who do not have decent knowledge of astronomy, they just, or history, they just jump. Many people, Aditya ji, I'll stop actually, by the way, so I can see your face here. many times what happens is these people who have a limited knowledge, they truly think the telescopes came with Galileo. Galileo is someone who used it, okay, especially in the Western Europe and especially pointing towards this. But this other person's name was before that. But as I said, in Mahabharata, we have a Sukshma Drishti. Vyasa is referring to that. We have mirrors. And we can infer this both ways. Because suppose we had a telescope, therefore we said, oh, they could have seen it. Or the fact that now for the description, the Vyasa has indeed written the descriptions of Saptagraha, Saptamahagraha doing these things. And we need to make that assumption of Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. We can infer the other way, saying that therefore it appears that Vyasa must have known. Otherwise, why would he write this Saptamahagraha going away from the sun, they being there near the sun, or they attacking the moon after sunset on 14 days of the war? So very, very interesting. And I have not, I mean, of course, it's in my book from 2011. But what I'm noticing is, forget the ordinary reader. Actually, ordinary readers do a very impressive job. But the so-called academics, so-called researchers, actually they stutter and they struggle to understand the book. Okay, so that's what I notice. So therefore, what I'm doing is I'm using our platform to cut it into small pieces, and bring it to people's attention.
No, you already quoted that line. Prakriti kriya marani gune karmani sarsha ahankar vimud atma karta ham iti manyate.
Yeah.
So already you quoted it. That in any case, these scriptures are written by Vyasadeva, Valmiki, and again we have to go back. But the problem is, if sometimes people do not agree with Vyasadeva, they say there are 8 Vyasadevas. And if they don't agree with Valmiki, they say there are 9. There have been many Valmikis also. So,
many Krishnas also.
Krishna is everywhere today. There's a Krishna restaurant.
That's right.
So Krishna is everywhere today.
Yeah, the Rasa Lila, the Dandiya dance is coming, right? So Krishna would expand himself. That is a different thing. But yeah.
Yeah, so Krishna is a common name to everyone. And but anyway, I will, like you encourage all the time, read the original text, make your own mind. And
Yes.
a lot of commentaries written later on, a lot of commentaries, and these are agamas. I'm always very scared of agamas, so but I'm just still mentioning agamas written there. Agamas are commentaries and understanding of various scholars. Yeah. But still, the original text, Shruti, Smriti, Purana, these are the original texts, Pancharatri. Yes. So yes. we have to keep on going back and checking.
Yeah.
So many of the misconceptions will go away. Like people say the Hindus have only one marriage. Well, there are Sanatana Dharma has 8 different types of marriages. I'm not encouraging anyone. So, but still, there are
like many mothers, right? How many mothers? Sapta or
7 mothers? 7 mothers.
Huh? 7 mothers. Yeah.
And one of them is cow. So cow protection is very important, especially if you are in America. Make sure that slaughterhouses get closed everywhere. And especially in the US and India also. India has earned a unique distinction of being the highest beef exporter.
Yeah, how
shame on all of us.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Dheeraj, as usual, very enlightening. Thank you. All the viewers who watched it, now you know that Indians have seen the stars before anyone else.
Planets, yeah. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto.
And Mythology has given a big description about heavenly planets.
Yes.
And yes, you're adding something?
Yeah. And no, I was going to say that even another Indian that came to my mind when you said Indian had seen the things before, his name is V.B. Ketkar, Venkatesh Bapuji Ketkar. And we are talking the time of late 19th century, 1800 something. And do you know what he had done? Like Newton's theory was out, of course, for 150 years or so. And many people had predicted this. But before Uranus, Neptune, Pluto were found, okay, he based on the mathematics, just like they were predicted because of the change in the motion of the Saturn, he had Venkatesh Bapuji Ketkar, and I had those original papers photocopied somewhere if I can find them. And he had predicted, see, this is fascination of Newton's theory, of course, which of course was benefited from Indian mathematics and astronomy, but Newton's credit, we cannot take it away, at least on that one. is that Venkatesh Bapuji Ketkar, he predicted these planets, like you in our times, rediscovering, you can call it, as Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. But going something further, he had predicted even the 10th planet.
Mm.
And do you know something interesting? Of course, that's what Newton's theory allows, which is fascinating. He had predicted these particular planets, he had predicted their orbital periods, and he had predicted their masses.
Wow.
Now, the 10th planet is not found, Now, based on that, therefore, so he predicted four, three are found, the fourth is not found. Are we going to say, therefore, he's wrong?
True.
Maybe we will find it in future. Maybe he made some mistake. Anything is possible. But the very fact on 3 he came out right on the money. Isn't that fascinating? But those people who do not understand how the science work. For example, out of 300 astronomy observations that I have in the Mahabharat, there are actually 10 observations, okay, close to 10. I'm just being very generous. It's not even 10, but close to 10 that do not corroborate for 5561 BC. And there could be many reasons for it. And sometime we will discuss that, like interpolation, some changes when the person writes it down, some mistake that person makes, and some person adds something which even wasn't there before, interpolation. So yes, there can be, but the very fact 290 match is just fascinating. It's like VB Ketkar predicting 4 and 3 coming out correct, 75% correct. But you cannot take that person who is 75% correct and take with someone who made no prediction or who made 4 predictions and 0% came out correct and say, oh, they both are same, both were wrong. Because the one guy didn't get 1, the other guy did not get all 4. No, you cannot compare like that. There is a method to madness in science, how it is done. So anyways, I'm going to say VB Ketkar did a fascinating work before these planets were found.
It's very interesting you quote VB Ketkar, because our Puranas maintain 8 planets plus Rahu and Ketu. Historical.
Interesting.
And the Navagraha concept, still need to discuss. I've not researched much. When we come to the Navgraha, then we will discuss it sometimes.
Very
but
good.
Actually, it's a 8 plus 2.
Okay. If we can find it, you would know possibly where it is. That will be good. And it's worthy of research.
Worthy of research. And another thing is like the planetary movements. It's always shown that the Earth is rotating. But just imagine where the people stay, how it can rotate. हमको चक्कर आ जाएगा. Very commonsensical logic, But anyway, we'll talk about it later on. Thank you all for watching and coming on the show, and namaste, and we'll catch you again. And today there is a live right now is going on. Varki versus Nilesh Oak's event is going on right now. So please do watch it. Namaste.
Okay, thank you.